And hello, my friends, and welcome. It's nice to see you all again and be with you again on this Thursday night, coming to you here from Berkeley Springs in West Virginia, where it's been a wonderful, glorious fall day with just extraordinary autumnal palette of colors. This place is really pretty wonderful in this time of year. And we're very happy to have with us our old and dear friend, Penny Kelly. Hello, dear Penny. How are you?
Oh, hi, John. Hi, everybody. It's really good to be back. I was really excited. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you with us, and we appreciate that. There's been an interesting and a fascinating couple of three videos that have come up my way in the last couple of days. For those that are not familiar with them, I'd like to just really set this up quickly, Penny, and have a go to a screen share and talk very quickly about, if I can find screen share. Where is there it is. Screen share, and I want to talk here, and this will be kind of old stuff to you, but it'll be new to some of these folks. But I've run into something that is, for me, has been very profound in the last couple of days, and that's kind of the subject of what we want to talk about today. And one of them is that, and it's based upon kind of sacred geometry. Now, to the extent that you buy into the basic idea of sacred geometry and that all of this reality that we experience is essentially built around, at its most fundamental level, a series of shapes, geometric shapes, then this is going to be very interesting and important to you. If you don't buy that, then you can hang on if you want to, but you may not find this as quite as profound as some of us. But I have heard and been exposed to these ideas for quite a while from a number of different sources, and they all come to the basic conclusion, and or they start from the basic kind of starting point. And one of them is essentially here is Metatron's cube. And they say that all of this reality is a derivative of some basic sacred geometric solids, which I'll show you a picture of here in a minute. But the most fundamental one is Metatron's cube, and Metatron's cube is a six, is based upon six. It's a hexagonal kind of structure. It's got six outside circles. It's six inside circles, and a direct derivative of this configuration is this flower of life over on the right-hand side. I've got Metatron's cube on my wall. I've got a picture of that, and I used to, up until a couple of days ago, I used to run around on on my necklace was a copy of the flower of life. And the flower of life shows up all over the place in ancient kind of literature and things on the walls of places like Egypt and such. And so it's a really fundamental kind of idea. And let me see, let me get back here and find out where this thing, there it goes. So here are the basic I think they're called platonic solids. And as you can see, and supposedly everything in this reality is a derivative of these solids. And as you can see, each one of them is based upon this hexagonal kind of configuration. And each one of them has six kind of circles on the periphery, on the outside. And but what you find out, though, is that I can't go into the details of where this all comes from and so on. But what I'd like to do is give you an idea about an alternative that is being proposed here. And that alternative, let me find, I'm trying to find.
You hit it once there.
Oh, I know it was, but it sets up the difference. It has the difference between the hex and the octagonal one, and it's right in now. It's right in anyway. So, well, there is an alternative perspective, and this is important. And I don't want to get down in the weeds, and I don't want to lose you, but the other configuration upon which everything that we know, and including the the tree of life and all of these concepts, including and we'll get to and talk a little bit more about them here in a minute, are all based upon that hexagonal kind of relationship. But there's another one. And what these folks would try to suggest to you, this group, this individual who's this, and he represents a whole school of thought, is that there is a parallel universe, a parallel reality that exists in the same space as the hexagonal one, and it's an octagonal one. And here's the octagonal one with 8 different circles. Now, this is all very interesting to me because specifically because I'm an engineer. And so I'm always interested in understanding how things work and why they work. And I've heard all of these presentations and people all talk about the tree of life and all of these things. And, it's all theoretical kind of ideas. They're conceptual ideas, they're broad, generated from ancient literature and so on, but there's no way to kind of connect it into and say, yeah, well, how do you know? How can you prove that it's right? Well, what we're getting to is an ability, for the first time in my life at least, to be able to understand from the most fundamental basic functionality what's happening in the world right now. And as a matter of fact, what's supposedly going to happen in about 10 days, in 2 weeks. And so here's a hexagonal one, and the hexagonal one is different than the octagonal one. And the main kind of difference is that the octagonal kind of reality will allow two beings or two entities to, as they describe them, to come together and become a third entity. And whether that is a man and a woman producing a child, or whether it's rising to a new level of consciousness, or whatever it is, what it talks about and shows is a kind of a dynamic relationship of the evolutionary process of humans. Now, just stay with this thing. This is you don't have to buy into it. I just want you to get the concept. And so when you break this up, what you can see is that all of these relationships, they contribute then to what this is almost like the Kabbalah, kind of the tree of life. And what it is, it turns out to be that it's highly fractal. I mean, you can't be highly fractal. It is fractal. And as you open up, and if you go down in between these different circles, and you open this whole release this diagram up, it just keeps going and so doing the same thing. And so, and the same relationships. And so at one, and you can't do that with the hexagonal one at all. And so it has deep and kind of profound implications. And so what I want to show you here is that what these guys argue is that this planet has 2 long competing creation templates. And the original eternal life, what they call the Chris code, which is about like Christ code template and the fallen finite Metatronic code. And so if you plot these things over time, and again, I mean, we're not going to get in the weeds here, but I want you to get the concept because this is kind of interesting. Because the Fibonacci spiral is this fallen, what they call the finite Metatronic code. This is the derivative from that presents itself throughout all of our natural reality. It's, you find it in plants, you find it in, all over the place. The Fibonacci spiral, and it's this red line, and it goes like this, right? And that is a direct derivative of the geometric basis of the hexagonal reality. So, so let me just jump off just for a second and tell you if you know anything about how computer programs work that generate visual things like what you're looking at right now, it's all based upon geometry, and they have wireframe relationships. You've seen some of those perhaps that show the kind of the shape of what a complex geometric item looks like. And then they have polygons. And so when you really open up a colored picture of anything, when you get way down, it has these polygons, it has these geometric kind of shapes. And what you're looking at essentially, and this is what's really important to me, you're looking at the essential architecture of the you might say the artificial environment that we live in. That is to say that you could make a case from this that we are in a simulation. We're in a matrix like the movie. And how is the matrix generated, and how do we know that it's a matrix? Because it has these common kind of geometric things at the base, and what they manifest themselves is things at a very high level that we all architects use and other people and so on, and the Fibonacci spiral and other similar kinds of things. And so this is a common kind of understanding. It describes our reality. And if you plot this thing over time, it starts at the beginning and it slowly expands, going faster and faster. And it's going faster and faster because the difference between these axes get larger and larger and larger. And so it's getting faster and faster. And it opened. And so this is time from the beginning of creation. And and it works its way up going like this. Now, what these guys are saying is that's the matrix. That's the machine. You're inside of the machine. And the reason why you see the Fibonacci spiral and you see all of these Metatronic kind of notions and so on all over the place is because that's the structure of the computer program that's the dominant one here. And on the other hand, there is this CRIST code template, which is this blue one, which is based on the octagonal rather than the hexagonal kind of structure. And it kind of follows along in parallel. And interestingly enough, it crosses over right there. And where it crosses over right there is the 9th and 10th of November, which is in 2 weeks in 2023. And when this website was put up, it was 2 years ago. And the important things about that are these are two different timelines. And there is, as he describes it, there's this very significant effort on this Fibonacci spiral to essentially capture and bring the crystal spiral over into here and make it an integral part of that. And And if you don't believe that there's an effort that's going on right now everywhere in the world to try to capture you and to try to make you dependent and generate fear and bring you into the dependence upon technology, which is where this thing is going, then, or if you do believe that, then you can understand and you can appreciate that there's this new world, this new human track that's going up here, and it gets further and further away, and that there is clearly an attempt with all of the technology to try to get us there and bring us in here, but it's not going to succeed. And this is essentially the description of the evolutionary path that we're on right now. And I don't want to spend a whole lot more time about it than that, other than to say this is the first time that I have ever seen anything that's comes from the ground up, from the basis of the very basic geometric relationships in this hexagonal and octagonal thing that describes in present day terms kind of what's going on now. And you could, by the way, say in kind of Dolores Cannon terms that you have these two different realities that are kind of largely superimposed on top of each other up until this time in 2 weeks, in which they then start to break apart. And then you had the emergence of the new world, and the other one then heads off and goes and does its own thing. So that is, let me see, stop this here. So I don't know, Penny, did I describe that very well?
Decent. Yeah. You really
Decent.
have
Okay.
to you have to sit with it in order to get your mind around it. And there's so much background information that that fills it in and fleshes it out. So I understand it like yesterday, like 40 years ago. So there's been this long period of time I've had to think about it and to be aware of what is going on. So
yeah, well, the thing that was so fascinating to me is that, like I say, for the first time, rather than just kind of hand waving and some kind of concepts and so on, that you can start to see from the original kind of source or the beginning or how this might work.
the math and the geometry is exquisite. So
Well, for me, it was just mind-boggling because I could see in everyday reality these concepts and these relationships, and how that the one world is trying its best to try to capture us all and take us off to control land or whatever they want to call it, the World Economic Forum and so on, and yet that it's breaking loose here and going in a new direction. And so, I mean, is there anything how is it that you came to that conclusion, that you understood it in these kinds of terms?
So let me speak in terms of my big picture. Okay.
Okay.
So when I came here, I just came here like everybody else, got born, raised in the country. We were poor, et cetera, huge family, which I loved. And then once I had that whole Kundalini experience, which was just, you have unlimited consciousness after that. And I began to realize who I was and what my name was and where I came from and what I was doing here and how my people saw this place and what was happening here. That presented a whole different kind of picture. And so I've just continued to try to do my little piece. It's like you just do your piece and just don't quit and just keep going,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I have done that in spite of many misgivings, in spite of, people complaining and in the beginning laughing, or in the beginning just disregarding, and you learn to shut your mouth and just keep working.
Right.
But it toughens you after a while. And I can see that, is very valuable now. But
What?
the way that we saw it, if I can nutshell it,
Yeah.
was that they're in places that are coming to this kind of intersection. There are very often groups of people who are more advanced than we are, who have their eye on how do we get a hold of a population that is not really healthy enough to resist, not really smart enough to resist, but they have some technological training and background and understanding, and they want to stop that there. They need the technological capability in the human, but they don't want critical thinking. They
Right.
don't want us to reach our power. And they will step in and they will try to take over a planet. And that's what they've been doing for a very long time here. And the goal is to distract as many people as possible from being able to hold this astounding consciousness, which for me, I think is a little easier because of Kundalini than for other people. But I have tried to understand and explain the science that people have here so that I can say, well, think of it this way. Well, it's like this, or it's, similar to that, drawing analogies
Right.
here and there, and trying to get the idea across without shocking the crap out of everybody about the whole agenda thing,
Right.
and getting people to choose without that threat has been difficult, to say the least. So,
Well, the one of the things that was really quite galvanizing to me about this whole two spiral kind of configuration was that I have suggested multiple times, that you've certainly heard me talk about, is that there was some event that was out on the horizon that was known to the powers that be, and they knew that if they didn't kind of make money or win the game or whatever it was, the window was going to close. And this is the first time that I've seen something other than just an abstract idea, which was my idea, because I could see that there's just people are shrilling, that there's a increasingly shrill kind of effort. It's almost scratching on the blackboard kind of thing to try to get as many people on your side as possible while you still have time. And then this thing shows up and says the crossover of the two timelines is in 2 weeks. And by the way, so you can kind of see that there was a thing. If this turns out to be true, and if the timing is right, then this is not some event down in 2027 or 2030 or whatever what that other people have talked about. It's not a big flare coming out of the sun or aliens showing up or other kind of things. There is this kind of basic kind of structural kind of crossover where you got a chance to make a decision on what side you're on. And then it gets harder and harder and harder because you can't, the two timelines open up.
yeah. Yeah. Let me say something else about, for anybody who happened to watch that and was like, what? What?
Yeah, right.
What are they saying? When the little men in brown robes started coming into my life in January of 1980, and they wanted to show me these pictures. One of the things that they kept going back to was you need to choose your alignment. You need to choose an alignment. And what that came down to was you either choose to align yourself with life or with death. And they said, if you don't choose life, you're already aligned with death. You don't have to do anything different, and you'll still stay aligned with death. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really like that alignment with death. And so, you know, that has kind of hung over me. But over the years of just working on myself, just developing certain skills, certain abilities, and I think there was in what is this, 2023? I think in 2021, in June or July 2021, I fractured my spine. And you were here, John, and I was trying to pretend that there was nothing wrong, and I thought I was dying. And
Mm.
so, and for about 3 weeks, just immense pain, ungodly pain, until it got to the point it scared me. And I got in there one night and I thought, you know, I won't tell you what I thought, but it was something like, damn it.
Yeah, right.
Worse. I'm going to do something. I'm going to see what I can do. I knew that if I breathed into a part of the body, that it would feel better. So I started working. Long story short, when I got up the next morning, the fractured spine was gone. It was healed. I hopped out of bed, ran to the bathroom, and thought, while I was sitting there peeing, oh, what happened to the spine? And
Yeah.
I, you know, moving around thinking, oh, you know, if I move wrong, am I gonna hurt something again? Never had another sign of it
Wow.
again. And so at that point, I thought, why aren't we all using our consciousness to do the miracles, to make the miracles we need?
Right.
And so that was kind of a big turning point. Another turning point was back in, there were three of these incidents. And I didn't mention this to you the other day, John, but there was an incident like in November, December, and one in January. And it was in this big castle-like space. And I'm talking with a friend of mine from high school that I haven't seen since high school. And there was a man dressed all in black down at the far end of the room. And he had this like black veil on. And I could feel him looking at me. And I just, and all of a sudden he gave a signal to my childhood friend, and I could not breathe. I was going down. They had me in some kind of an energy vice. I've never experienced anything like that again. I knew I was fighting for my life. And for some reason, I had this little voice inside that said, breathe down, all the way down, breathe all the way down to your crotch, all the way to your knees, all the way to your feet. And I struggled badly, but by the third breath, it released. There were three of those. There were two more after that one. And they were fierce. And it was a contest of wills and consciousness. And it was like, nope, I'm sorry. You're not having me. We're not doing this. I'm sorry. I have power. I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
So that was the last of one of those was in January. Then in February of this year, I had surgery and I had all of that upgrade stuff on board the ship while I was under the anesthetic. And then
By the way, that whole notion is that not gonna do this and I'm gonna have enough of this and you get out of my life is exactly what I did at, the first week in February in the problem that I had. And that was the mechanism that got the demonic forces out of my life.
yeah, you make a stand and
Yeah.
then you work through whatever comes after that. Well, then after that, after making that decision, no, you can't have me. I'm not going that way. I had this night, and this was probably now, I'm going to say 6 months ago, where I spent the whole night dealing with that Fibonacci circle. And all I could remember when I came out of the dream, which was really not a dream, it was an experience of being in school and studying the ratio of 1 to 1.618, I think was the number. I'd have to go back and look in my journal. But that ratio was critical. And I woke up and thought, okay, I don't remember why that was critical. But then the 22nd of this month, so what's today, the 26th, so 4 days ago, I had this dream. It was very short, I'll just read it. I can't recall all of this dream, but I was in a large building with many floors. I was busy working at something very actively on the 6th floor. I was running all over. I was looking for something that I wasn't finding. The search became a little more active and even frantic, and then even had a sense of puzzlement and anxiety when somebody came up to me and said, "You're looking on the wrong floor. You need to go to the 8th floor. Go to and look in room 864. So I was surprised. I went up to the 8th floor and found everything I had been looking for. And I came out of that with the sense that I had the answer, but I didn't know what the answer was. So, and then you come along with this, look at this Rynette Senham's Foghorn Express thing. And I thought, holy cow, that whole ratio, that night I spent dealing with 1 to 1.618, and then the 6th floor versus the 8th floor, I think that has some significance there. And so I've been kind of working and just allowing stuff to come in and asking, is there going to be anything sparkly or fascinating that happens on the 8th, 9th, 10th of November? And the answer is no, not really. But if you hold your consciousness where you want it, you're going to see that whole third dimensional thing sort of falling away, getting better and better where you are. And it's not going to matter what's happening over there. It's going to appear that the bad guys are losing.
Right.
And so that's had a big effect.
Well, there's another wrinkle in that, and that is that as you get onto that new track that's getting further and further away from the old track,
right?
What happens is things don't work the same way as they did before. The assumptions that you've made about how other people are going to respond, or how the government's going to get after you, or what's going to happen, or something like that, suddenly, I've always characterized it as they're going to have their hands full taking care of their own problems, and they're not going to bother me because I'm not going to be in their face and I'm not going to threaten them. Yeah.
They're already in that they're not paying attention to the little guys, us.
I understand it, but it just gets worse. It gets better and better, if you will, as this opens up, and the new world starts to kind of coalesce around these kind of new ideas. I mean, this is a really amazing big thing if this is what in fact happens.
Yeah. And I think there's another thing I wanted to share. I've been tracking this picture that Dick Allgaier had put together. It was Congressman puking and crying and sobbing and falling on the floor. And I made some notes about that. I went to look again at that for the umpteenth time. And I saw two things. One was that
you should say about Dick Allgaier for people who don't know. Dick Allgaier is the head of a group that is the best remote viewing group on the planet right now. And they work on a regular, everyday kind of basis, solving problems for clients and also looking out into the future. And what you're talking about is a targeting that happened, I don't know, a month or so ago or something like that.
Like a couple of years ago is what.
Well,
puking?
Okay.
Well,
maybe we're talking about
frame up that. So let's just leave that dangle.
Yeah. Well, in any case, they were targeted on something else, and none of them saw that. They saw this big event that was happening, and they started to get the same kind of ideas and imagery. But you're talking about the puking thing, which was 2 years ago. Yes, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, for that, when they saw the congressman puking and they were crying and sobbing, it was because Congress was closing down for the last time. And their target had been a financial question about the financial collapse. And this is what they saw instead. And so they were like, what? What?
Yeah.
You know, so everybody's been asking about that. And so I have too. So I went to look, and what I saw actually was that Trump, and I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 years, no, I don't see Trump. I don't see Trump. I don't see Trump. He's not returning. No, everybody's, he's coming back March 3rd or March 4th or March something or whatever. And I kept saying, I don't see that. But all of a sudden, it was like, I think Trump is returning. Once he returns, the entire Congress is disbanded. And the reason given is that of the 435 or 535 of them or whatever, only a handful were legitimately elected, and the rest were all part of the fixed election. And so they're all thrown out. They're done. Trump returns, Congress is disbanded. The reasons given was, as I just said, all of them were illegitimate. Martial law goes into place. There was a lot of clashes with subversives that had come over the southern border. And there was a shoot to kill order in place. And Americans, like the flyover Americans, I guess that's what they were called.
A flyover country in the middle.
Yeah. Their attitude was, woohoo, something's changing finally. Something.
Yeah.
And the November 24th of 2024 or November 2024 election did not look like it was going to happen. It didn't look good. And so I thought, okay, what I think is that what I might be seeing, this is today's thinking, and this is speculation, because you allow all kinds of information to come in, and then you watch and you see where the energy is going, and then you follow that, and you can see right what the outcome is going to be. But it looks like Trump returns on one of those timelines, and it gets better for those people, but it takes a while. It takes a while. There needs to be a lot of people who didn't like Trump at all. They're not happy, and there's a breaking up of the U.S. So it takes a while for things to settle down, but everything does gradually get better. So let's assume that even if we're on the evolved timeline, we still have to go through some things in which we pace ourselves in a way that carries us forward with this is what
I think that's an important point, and that is that this is not over with. And what it is going to require is increased kind of focus and dedication and commitment to this kind of new world, in my lingo, and that now is the time. I mean, if you don't do it now, if all of this is correct, it just gets harder and harder and harder afterwards, because the big money and all of the big effort and all of the sophistication and all of the computers are all trying to keep you over on that other timeline. And so it's going to be really easy to just capitulate and just go with that and give in and go, watch TV and drink beer, like I say.
Let me make another comment. Along the lines of technology, I see so many of the early seeds of the technology that leads to the kind of technology that my people have. Okay. And what I've said for a long time is we have this amazing technology, but we don't have good people to manage it. And so you can't have it if you can't trust the people that are managing it or running
Yeah,
it.
they'll blow up the world, you know?
That's right. And that's another one of those splits that I see is both sides have that same technology, but one side destroys themselves with it. The other side evolves and continues to, I mean, all the technology is there for making ships invisible, for unlimited energy at
Yeah.
no cost.
Right.
What you can do with graphene, OMG.
Yeah.
Graphene is the early precursor of what we use for clothing so that you can't get hurt. You
Yeah.
know, it'll stop a bullet. So yeah, where I see the seeds of all of that, and we just need to be on the right path in order to have access to it and not destroy ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. This is an amazing, uh, you know, you and I both been at this for a long time, and I can remember when some of these nascent ideas first began to show up way back in the
Yeah.
1980s, and they certainly weren't as well formed as they are now. And but you could see this whole thing coming down, and it 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 was always in my mind giant and epical and of cosmic importance and really big. I mean, and I wouldn't probably be able to articulate it very well in those kinds of terms back then, but I could tell that this was a really freaking big deal. And now it is, and it was always it was always out there. It was always in the future sometime. And up until a couple of days ago, I would have told you, well, 2027 to 2030 is when 3 or 4 of my different sources have all said something big was going to happen, and so on. And it may be, it
Yeah.
may just be that it's next week. It's not then. And
I think, let me say something about that. I think 2027, as I keep looking at that date thinking, why does that keep coming up? And it looks like it's at that point. So this is 2023. So 2027, that's 4 years from now. It takes at least that long for the general population to get the idea that, oh, something's shifted, something's different.
yeah,
And they can still maybe get over on the other timeline, just like the birth books talk about. You got
yeah,
a certain amount of time, we're moving apart, you can still make the leap. And people do, they will. But I think that makes all the difference in the world as to how Mother Earth is alive, and
yeah.
she has capacities of her own. And I don't want to say anything. I got in a whole bunch of trouble the other night.
I know you did. You're getting yourself famous for
Oh my God. I'm
Cliff High is today is not your friend.
boy, one of those times, it's like, God dang you, Cliffy, if you want to play in the sandbox, quit throwing sand. So he's gonna get it one of these times. Anyway, I think that 2027 and beyond, everybody is getting it. It's like, and we're done fighting a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this is a variation of the scenario. Cry on Lee Carroll. When he was coming here, we talk about some of this kind of stuff, and I'd talk about the different kind of scenarios, and he'd say, well, there's just kind of wave after wave, and the kind of thing, and it just moves you into a different kind of space. And so he was the first one that kind of suggested that this was kind of evolutionary rather than, if you will, revolutionary.
yeah.
And Of course, science is seeing waves of energy measuring them coming out of the center of the galaxy, and the sun is doing strange things. But how that's all hooked up now into this crossing timeline thing. This is really quite interesting. Now, there is and this is kind of a variant of what I just said a minute ago, but there's a kind of a protective shield that comes with this, I think. That if you get on this new timeline, that in a sense, in a very real sense, the guys on the other timeline, increasingly by the day, they have less interest in who you are, and so it's not like you need a shield. They don't care. They've got their hands full trying to deal with what they've got to do. But there is a new reality. This new timeline is a new reality. And it has, as the guy who did that video, he explained it, this is a reality that's got different physics, and it has different, the fundamentals of how it works are different. And what that means is that there's all kinds of new things that can be that we can be, and that this new world can be, because it works in a different way. The structure is different. The opportunities, the potentials are all different.
They are. They are, and they're wonderful in so many ways. Just the fact that we could use that great field out there as our source for constant renewal and regeneration, that's a big deal. To heal something, an eye, a leg, a fractured spine, whatever.
Yeah.
That's just the beginning. And then there's the housing. And the other day, I was talking to somebody and saying, I can't wait until we have the kind of houses here that I'm familiar with, where the walls are sending these frequencies that constantly renew and heal you, that constantly upgrade you, not in a jerky kind of way, but smooth.
Yeah.
So it's easy. The clothing is different. The way food is raised is different.
Of course.
Very, very different. The science is all geared toward how do we help man? How do we make man, humans, able to move through any medium, be that air, water, rock, dirt,
Right.
walls, whatever. There's ways to do that. I just can't wait.
Okay. Penny, would you characterize this new reality as analog rather than digital? Does that make sense to you?
I was going to say I would characterize it as scalar, but I'm not sure that that's something that the way I understand it is the way that everybody understands.
Well, nature, as we understand it all, is all analog.
Yeah,
It's not digits. It's not digital. And all of this new direction that they're trying to haul us off into is all based upon, and they're trying to do that to our bodies and digitize our bodies and our mind and our everything. Yeah, it's all this and digital things, by definition and design, have these rough edges around the edges, and analog is this smooth kind of movement from one state to another one.
that's
And
right.
I just
Yes, it's very much more analog. The difference being that the analog action can be directed by consciousness, is directed by consciousness.
yeah.
So it is smooth. It's much smoother than what we have now. So, yeah.
Well, this is going to be interesting, and it's really going to be fun. And so let's close down this conversation. And I thank you very, very much for coming and being a part of this. And it's always provocative to talk with you, which is why I do it all the time. And
Provoke, but
I want to remind all of our viewers that you're going to be with us at Transition Talks in May, April, I don't know, May sometime. But you can May,
18th, May
yeah,
18th, maybe?
yeah. And so they can find out all the information that they wanted
Yeah.
transitiontalks.org or at the arlingtoninstitute.org. So thanks so much and thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.